mechanical figures that perform acrobatics on their own, inexhaustible bottles, mind-reading acts, coin sleights, card sleights. These are just some of the tricks of the magician's trade, but they all bear the signature of one man. His career in magic lasted only 10 years, but Eugene Robert-Houdin is called the father of modern magic.
I think Robert-Houdin was the Doug Henning of his day.
From bullet catches, to coin sleights, to second sight, to automatons, all that you see here in whole or in part are illusions that originated with or were defined by a single magician. He was a true Renaissance man, and he has left an indelible mark on magic. He is Eugene Robert-Houdin.
He's known as the father of modern magic, and I think there can be no dispute on that point.
Robert-Houdin was, yes, very much responsible, certainly, for influencing a great number of people.
He moved us into a modern world. He's considered the father of modern conjuring when we lost the robes and the caps.
I think that the more we learn about Robert-Houdin, the more importance he takes on. He doesn't become less the more we learn, he becomes more.
I will be lighting myself on fire momentarily, folks. Here we go. Ready?
What busker Mike Marina is doing here on Santa Monica's promenade is what magicians have been doing since the beginning of time, namely, performing for a crowd outdoors. Until Robert-Houdin, this is where most magic was performed.
Before Houdin came along, magicians were basically street performers considered essentially like criminals. They were pickpockets and carny crooks, the kinds of people that most respectable individuals would not want to associate with.
In addition, the magicians of the day still dressed as Merlin, the conical cap, the flowing robes, the magic wand. They were far from respectable society, and Robert-Houdin was born into a very respectable world. Specifically, he was born Jean-Eugene Robert in Blois, France. It was December 7th, 1805.
He was a clockmaker, a mechanic, a very clever technical performer with machinery.
In 1830, Jean-Eugene Robert would meet and marry the daughter of a noted Parisian watchmaker. He would move to Paris and, unusually, adopt his wife's maiden name, becoming Jean-Eugene Robert-Houdin. Even at this early stage, Robert-Houdin had started to play with magic as a hobby, mastering sleights of hand using cards or coins. Soon he began to consider magic an art form, one he wished to pursue much more seriously. By the 1840s, Robert-Houdin had put watchmaking aside. He dedicated himself to magic, and from the very start, he did magic differently. For one thing, he opted for evening dress. He went even further than that, however.
Robert-Houdin sort of brought it into the drawing room, not quite on the street corner and such, and it was no longer a costume. It was a gentleman of means who could do some interesting experiments in psychology or whatever they called it in that day. So it was not a flamboyant character. It was a respectable, restrained, dignified gentleman doing the routines.
Utilizing the skills of a watchmaker, Robert-Houdin soon brought automatons into his act.
He always seemed to have an automata of one or another in his show.
Essentially, automata are mechanical figures able to simulate life without relying on electricity. They amused and amazed their Victorian audiences. One of Robert-Houdin's creations, the fantastic orange tree, is recreated today by magic designer John Gahn.
Well, this wonderful tree is a duplicate of one that was in Robert-Houdin's act in around 1845. And you would start off this piece by borrowing a handkerchief from a lady, and from another lady borrow a ring, and maybe from a gentleman you borrow a dollar bill of which he signs, and you put them all together and put them in a container which is set on fire, and mysterious smoke would go up in the air. And at that point, the music would start, and he would, Robert-Houdin would ask the audience to look closely at the tree, and you would actually see little flowers growing throughout the tree. And after the tree had blossomed, lo and behold, you would actually see little oranges start to grow. And now these oranges turned out to be real oranges, believe it or not. And these 4 or 5 down here would be picked off the tree and thrown to different members of the audience. And one of them would be given to the gentleman whom we borrowed the dollar bill from, and a knife, he would open it up, and well inside the orange was his borrowed dollar bill, signed by himself. We'd come back to the tree, and there would be just one orange still left on top, and it would split open, and inside we would find the borrowed handkerchief and 2 wonderful butterflies. Pick it up in the air, and in the middle of the handkerchief would also be the borrowed ring.
Then there is a 34-inch high figure known to magicians around the world as Antonio Diavolo. 150 years after he was first introduced to audiences, Antonio is still alive, lovingly restored by John Gahn.
Now, I believe, yes, Antonio is going to attempt to do a handstand, and he's been rehearsing this all week, so let's bear with him here. Come on, little fella. Oh, almost, Antonio. Very good. Get the feet up, almost. Come on, that's one. There we go, Antonio, there we go. Very good. Oh, yes, very good, Antonio.
This was his co-star who was programmed and taught, so to speak, to do a certain routine. And he'll do that routine for us today. And watching it, we get a sense, for the first time in many, many years, what it's really like to see a performance of Robert-Houdin. It's a great thrill for anyone involved in magic to see Antonio go through his paces.
Now be careful, this is where you fell, Antonio. Oh my gosh, look at that. Oh, Antonio, get back up there. Oh, very good. Amazing, Antonio. Yes.
By the late 1840s, Robert-Houdin had established himself as a new kind of performer. Taking magic into the parlors soon led to magic appearing on the stages of legitimate theaters. Robert-Houdin would tour England and France as a magician, playing such prominent venues as the St. James Theatre, entertaining for a personage no less than Her Majesty Queen Victoria. And in the early 1850s, he was able to do something beyond taking magic off the street and into the theater. He built his own theater.
Houdin builds his own theater, the Robert-Houdin Theater, which held, I think, 180 or about 200 seats.
But then he decorated the set on the stage to look exactly like a very elegant society Parisian drawing room with Louis XV furniture and very expensive accoutrements. But it was a well-equipped theater under all of this. He could do his performance that was designed to look like a parlor presentation, a parlor amusement, and secretly have the advantage of all of the secret lighting and stage traps and all of these things that he needed to effect his illusions.
He did a number of things, including introducing what's called a second sight trick. Modern audiences would know this as a form of mentalism. He would blindfold his son on stage, and audience members would bring objects. The son, without seeing the objects, was able to identify them as Houdin worked his way through the audience and challenged people to come up with weird or unusual things for his son to divine as such.
Today, mentalism acts are still a definite crowd pleaser, as witnessed by the performance of Jeff and Tessa Evison as they entertain a corporate audience.
I keep getting a shape and a sound like a gun. Does that make sense?
What kind of certificate is this, sir?
Gun.
This is a gun certificate. Very good. And no, go on, do you know his first name, Tess? Don't say it.
This gentleman's scaring me. I think it's Ronald.
Sir, what is your first name?
Ronnie.
It's actually Ronnie. Have we ever met before?
No.
There's your gun certificate back. Thank you very much, Tess.
Thank you, sir.
Take your blindfold off, ladies and gentlemen. Give her a hand. The amazing Tessa.
Robert Houdin, still in his 40s, had changed the very nature of magic. It was becoming a respectable theatrical art for the upper classes. Magicians were becoming celebrities. Few could imagine that Robert Houdin's greatest success was still to come.
The bottom line is Robert Houdin stopped a great deal of bloodshed with a single magic show. That's a miracle.
One can't even begin to assess the work of master magician Jean-Eugene Robert-Houdin without recognizing the manner in which his mechanical ability allowed him to stretch the art form.
Houdin was a watchmaker by profession, and that mechanical background gave him the basis to build and design many of the clever illusions that he presented. Yeah, the mystery clock was an ingenious mechanical device. While it wasn't marketed as a magic trick, it actually is an illusion of sorts. It's a glass clock where many of the fittings and pieces are made of glass, such that the entire mechanism is transparent. The clock's hands look like they're floating. It really is a brilliant piece of apparatus, and it was something I think that Houdin was particularly proud of.
Another piece of which Robert Houdin was justifiably proud was the crystal coin casket, now in the magic collection of Ken Klosterman. It was a highlight of Robert Houdin's intimate stage show.
This would hang between his table on beautiful silk red cords, and he would throw coins to the crystal casket, and you would hear him leave one at a time and appear in the crystal casket until there were maybe 20 or 30 coins in the casket.
One could only imagine what he might have done with modern technology and chip technology and programming abilities and remote control switches and such.
One of the most remarkable creations was the pastry cook of the Palais Royal. In this illusion, a miniature mechanical pastry cook welcomed an audience member to his toy-like pastry shop, from which he served hot buns, cakes, ices, and liqueurs. And then there were illusions more suited to the large stage. One of the most enduring was known as the ethereal suspension, performed today by the Le Grand David Magic Company of Beverly, Massachusetts.
Houdin called it the ethereal suspension because what he did was take a very current invention, which was ether.
And he would actually scatter a bit of it around so people in the audience could smell it, and the impression was that his young son was under the influence of ether and could then float in the air.
And the audience, of course, could smell the ether. Of course, probably made the audience a little happier to be at the show. And he worked it into the show in such a way that many magicians have.
In 1854, Jean-Eugene Robert-Houdin, the Renaissance man, decided to retire from stage magic and devote his time to writing and the study of electricity and mechanics. The French government had different ideas, however. What was to follow would become one of the most legendary stories in magic, how a magician ended a war.
The French at that time were occupying Algiers. There was a group of religious clerics known as the Marabouts, who were essentially inciting a revolt against the French. claiming that they had magical powers.
The emperor says, hey, we got some trouble in Algeria. There are these shaman guys, and they're dancing around pulling their teeth out and putting them back in and saying, see, I have powers you don't. I now rule your country.
So he sent Robert-Houdin, commissioned him to go down and try to stop this native uprising.
So Robert-Houdin goes to Algeria, quite a distance from France.
Now, Robert-Houdin could have done two things. He could have gone and exposed the tricks of the local magicians, or he could do greater tricks, and I think he chose the obvious path that any showman would take.
He held an apple on a sword, and he said, fire, I'll catch it, I'll protect myself. He said, fire at me, and I'll stop it. So he holds the apple on the sword, says, fire, boom, bullets in the apple, throws it down, they go, ah, so what? You know, you catch bullets in apples, big deal, I'm ripping teeth out of my mouth. And he says, oh yeah, well, check this out, fire again. Didn't expect it, boom, catches it in the teeth, spits it out. All of a sudden, the shaman from Algeria, uh-oh, this guy's good.
But the one that really stopped the war, or stopped the killing, was a trick called the light and heavy chest.
He cast his spell over the man and showed he was such a powerful magician he could take away the man's strength. The man could no longer pick up the box.
The light and heavy chest still exists today in the collection of Ken Klosterman, and its abilities can still be tested.
In the name of Napoleon II and Robert-Houdin, you have lost your strength. You may try to lift this, but you will not succeed. You may try, but you will not succeed. Don't break the handle now, just to make a point. But that's light and heavy chest. And the other interesting thing is that I can put the strength back in you if you want that to happen. Do you want it to happen?
Yeah,
you sure?
I do.
All right, it's difficult, but I will try. You now are strong. You're able to lift the box.
All right.
The bottom line is Robert-Houdin stopped a great deal of bloodshed with a single magic show, and that's a miracle.
Robert-Houdin finished his autobiography in 1858 and would go on to become the Bible of magicians, much discussed, much dissected. Interestingly, it is here that we first hear of a mentor of Robert-Houdin's, a magician named Torini, who aided him in his early days. However, most scholars dismiss this aspect of the book.
There's a great deal of melodrama built into Houdin's autobiography, and one of those elements is the Torini story about how he was sort of down and out, and Torini helped him out. But the truth of the matter is, I think it was Houdin's grandson who admitted, look, that was just something my grandfather made up. That was not a real person.
Robert-Houdin would live on another 13 years until on June 13, 1871, the great magician passed away. His legacy, however, carried on.
Certainly he did something that he knew nothing about at all, which was to give Eric Weiss his name when Eric Weiss decided that he would call himself a name which he thought meant like Houdin, and he put I on the end of it. He was wrong in this supposition, as he later found out, but nonetheless, he did take the name Houdini.
Harry Houdini belonged to the new century, and in its early years he established himself as the most famous name in magic. At first, he openly admitted his idolization of the late French illusionist. Then, things changed.
When he was in France playing in Paris, he decided he would take a trip to the town where Robert-Houdin was born and visit his grave and lay a wreath of flowers there in Robert-Houdin's honor. He was very peeved when he went to Robert-Houdin's house, and Robert-Houdin's widow wouldn't see him, wouldn't talk to him, and then wouldn't give him permission to put the flowers on the grave. Houdini did not take, projection well, to say the least. I mean, if he was rebuffed, he got very angry. He later wrote an extraordinary book called The Unmasking of Robert-Houdin. He tried to show that none of the things that had been credited to Robert-Houdin really belonged to him, that Robert-Houdin was not the father of modern magic, that he was not the person who had first appeared on stage in ordinary street clothes. He simply tried to destroy Robert-Houdin's reputation, even to the extent of saying the famous autobiography of Robert-Houdin wasn't even written by Robert-Houdin.
Houdini wrote, "He purloined the ideas of magicians long dead and buried and proclaims these as the fruits of his own inventive genius. That he might be known to posterity as the king of conjurers, he sold his birthright of manhood and honor."
I think that as time goes on, he looks more embarrassing. He would have been much better served to have accepted that Robert-Houdin was a very important performer and leave it at that.
From a magician's point of view, I think it was a sad affair.
Harry Houdini, when he came down on Robert-Houdin, I think was being a bad boy. I don't think he should have done it.
In the last generation, we've seen Robert-Houdin, the importance of Robert-Houdin coming back to the forefront. Robert-Houdin was a fantastic businessman. He was a fantastic theater manager. He had a fantastic sense of what the audience wanted to see. Wonderful, talented writer, and he wrote some of the most important books ever written on magic, conveying not only the secrets, but very important aspects of the secrets, so that his students understood the art.
Of course, as with all legendary figures, there is always another point of view.
The legend is better than the performance.